This is a review of the 1998 PS1 game Metal Gear Solid, which started a very successful Konami franchise afterwards. At times, this will be the best movie you've ever played, or maybe it'll be the best game you've ever watched, I'm not sure, but one thing's for sure though, we're going to have a lot to talk about and this is going to take a while. Go ahead and get ready for spoilers, and I'd recommend you make some popcorn, this is going to be a long one. The year's 2005. Solid Snake's been retired for some time, but he's been pulled out once again to infiltrate Shadow Moses Island, a secret nuclear facility in Alaska. Here's why. The Foxhound unit, led by Liquid Snake, has gone rogue, using the genome soldiers of Shadow Moses to start an uprising, demanding the remains of the legendary soldier Big Boss. If the government doesn't give in to their demands within 24 hours, they're going to launch a nuke. Snake has to sneak in to save DARPA Chief Donald Anderson and ArmsTech President Kenneth Baker and make sure that Foxhound can't launch. Snake's got a support team that are helping him do this mission. Foxhound's group consists of Liquid Snake, their master of disguise Decoy Octopus, their gunslinger Revolver Ocelot, a superhuman shaman named Vulcan Raven, a psychic medium named Psycho Mantis, and finally their sharpshooter Sniper Wolf. Did you get that? Good, let's move on. Snake surfaces at the docks of the base and makes his way into the tank hangar. When he finds his way to the prison cells, he notices a woman before dropping down into Anderson's cell.
Oh, kinda damn cold.
Oh yeah, how could I forget that guy? Snake and Anderson have a lengthy chit-chat. Even though Shadow Moses is a nuclear disposal facility, it's also being used to do a test launch of Metal Gear Rex. The passwords that Anderson and Baker have are required to launch, but unfortunately the terrorists got Anderson's code by having Mantis read his mind. The 3 PAL cards that Baker is supposed to have are a failsafe to stop the launch, so Snake's gonna have to get them to stop it. Snake's also given his very first keycard for the security doors of the area, before Anderson then continues to keep questioning him about if he's learned any other ways to stop the launch. Suddenly, he drops dead of a heart attack. Naturally, Snake is not amused, and Colonel Campbell's not a very good liar, but Snake doesn't have time to question him more about this. Snake's held up by a female guard who thinks he killed the chief. They get ambushed by a bunch of guards before she then escapes. Snake sees a mysterious vision of Anderson's interrogation. In the vision he saw, Mantis failed to get Anderson's code by reading his mind, and Ocelot accidentally killed him. Dead men tell no tales, so what's going on here? Snake passes through the armory and finds Baker wired to a ton of C4. Here we have our first boss battle against Revolver Ocelot. It's a cat and mouse game where you chase him around, getting in shots where you can, usually done while he's reloading. It's alright, but it's nothing compared to what we're going to see later on. A mysterious cyborg ninja slices off Ocelot's hand after the fight and cuts Baker free. Ocelot and Baker seem to know more than they're letting on about that guy. It turns out Baker was physically tortured for his code. Him and Anderson both had brain implants to resist mind reading. Baker's also pretty skeptical about the heart attack thing.
He had a heart attack or something. A heart attack? Oh, don't be a fool.
Baker doesn't have those card keys anymore, but that woman, who is Campbell's niece Meryl, managed to get them. Baker would tell us the codec frequency, but...
Oh, sorry. I forgot. Damn. Oh, that's right. It should be on the back of the CD case. Try to contact.
Baker points us to Dr. Hal Emmerich, the lead designer of Rex, before explaining that Rex was supposed to deter other countries from using nukes. Baker's company is in a bad way, and he bribed his way into getting Rex made as a secret black project as a last resort.
Bribes. I prefer to think of it as good business.
Baker gives Snake an optical disc with the experiment data, explaining that any other copies of the data have been destroyed. And he suggests that Snake ask Naomi about the ninja before he then dies of a heart attack, just like Anderson.
Colonel, are you listening? Now he's dead too. I have no idea.
Campbell's still full of it, but he suggests that Snake join up with Meryl to help with the mission. Meryl opens up a path for Snake to get to Emmerich before being told to hide because she's too green to handle things. For now, he's going to have to pass through some lasers and head to the canyon, where he gets a mysterious call from Deep Throat, warning him of claymores and a tank ambush ahead. The tank is driven by Vulcan Raven and several guards, but Snake's so awesome he's able to destroy it just using grenades. This boss revolves around using chaff grenades in order to get close enough to the tank to actually throw regular frags at it to destroy it. Snake then needs to get through the nuclear warhead storage area where he can't use any weapons. He comes to an area where Deep Throat again calls him to warn him, this time that he needs the Nikita missiles to destroy a panel powering an electrified floor, and that the area is filled with poison gas. After clearing the way, Snake sees a grisly spectacle. Several guards have been brutally killed by an unknown assailant. He makes it to Emmerich, who is being harassed by an invisible man. Scaring him so much, he ends up wetting himself and cowering in a locker.
It's like one of my Japanese animes.
I like that he's pointing this out. This really is right out of a crazy anime. The ninja wants revenge and to fight Snake in Mortal Kombat. Not that kind. There's a lot of punching and kicking, though. After the fight, Snake realizes that the ninja is Gray Fox, who supposedly died years ago when Snake fought him in Zanzibar land. But he was then used as a test experiment for genetic modifications, thus becoming the progenitor of Foxhound's genome soldiers and pretty much losing any semblance of himself. Emmerich didn't know that Foxhound was going to use Rex to launch a nuke, intending it to be a defensive weapon.
Fire. I already know that Metal Gear is nothing but a nuclear-equipped walking deathmobile.
And it gets him talking about his tragic past, lamenting that his grandfather worked on the Manhattan Project, his dad was born the day the Hiroshima nuke dropped, and now he's been manipulated into doing this. Snake gets him to stop whining and finds out where Rex is. Otacon explains that he wanted to make robots because of anime, and he adopts the codename Otacon to help Snake out. Now Snake's gotta save Meryl. Snake meets up with her and they find themselves completely alone on the way to the commander's room.
What happened to the music?
Right before the door, Meryl's not herself, but they have to continue on. It's time for Psycho Mantis to read your memory card, vibrate your controller, change the and make you change controller ports. What else can I say about the fight? It's an interesting gimmick that breaks the fourth wall. It's memorable, but at this point everybody knows about it. It's not exactly new. After losing, Mantis explains that he's a real bastard, but he sees Snake as being even worse than him for all the death he's caused, before he then uses his powers to help Snake, with his last moment showing that Mantis realized that he might have had a happy life if he'd used his unique abilities to do good for the world. Oh well. Snake and Meryl go through a cave filled with wolves to get to an area trapped with claymores. Meryl is shot by Sniper Wolf, and Snake has to backtrack all the way back to the first floor of the warhead storage, through the canyon and more mines, then the tank hangar and the armory to obtain the PSG-1 so he can fight back, before then needing to run the stretch again backwards to return to the area to do this fight. The fight itself is a basic sniping game, shoot her before she shoots you. The sniper rifle is really wobbly unless you use diazepam to steady your aim. Getting hit throws your aim off violently. The PS1 controller sucks for this sort of thing, and I think this is the worst boss so far. Snake is then ambushed and captured, having all of his stuff taken away. It's time for the torture sequence. Now, Snake clearly has no idea what the heck the circle button is, but I do, so I'm gonna help him out.
Don't even think about using auto fire, or I'll know.
If we surrender, we get a bad ending where Meryl dies, but if we keep going, we get a good ending where we escape with Meryl. From what I remember of playing the bad ending, in that one, Otacon's the one who's with Snake at the end, but otherwise it's not majorly different. Ocelot took away the Rex data disk, so that's going to be an issue. He also suggests that Snake should ask the Colonel some more about the situation, and is wondering where the other two failsafe keys are, among other things.
Looks like I got a roommate. The DARPA chief?
I knew that those heavy hints that something wasn't right was indicating something was wrong. Snake is once again not fond of being tricked by Campbell, who still can't tell him anything, except that the government's trying to keep this whole thing on the down low because America doesn't have much longer before the president has to sign the START 3 Accord and continue working towards nuclear disarmament, which they had already been lagging behind on to begin with. Snake's told to just focus on destroying Rex, and he asks Otacon to help him bust out. After a second round of torture, Naomi and Snake have a conversation to help distract Snake from his pain. Snake never had a family, except that Big Boss said he was Snake's father, and Snake had to kill him during Metal Gear 2. Naomi also didn't have a family except for a brother who helped raise her. Snake was friends with Gray Fox, whom he had to fight to the death in a minefield, but despite that, he said that war was no reason to end a friendship. Naomi wanted to get into genetics to try to find out where she came from, etc., etc. You get the idea. The cell guard seems to be having some stomach problems. While he's on the run, Otacon comes and helps Snake slip out of the place and retrieve his gear, along with giving him a handkerchief Wolf had, allowing Snake to get past her dogs in the cave without having to fight. It's time to get back to where he once belonged, just after the first fight with Wolf and then off to the communications tower. Along the way, he's got to climb the longest stairway I've ever seen and fight a ridiculous stream of guards. If you don't already know, and the game doesn't tell you this, so you probably don't, holding the X button lets you run while you're using your weapon. You're going to need to do that to get through this, along with spamming stun grenades. Once you get to the top of this tower, you're going to have to deal with Liquid Snake in a hind D, first by rappelling down the side of the tower and then having to cross the walkway to get to the second tower. The elevator to get to the bottom of the second tower isn't working, even though just a minute ago Otacon rode on it. Snake and Otacon talk about if love can bloom on a battlefield and stuff like that, but now it's time for Snake to fight Liquid in the hind for real. This is a cool fight involving using stinger missiles to hit it. It's simple, but it's fun and it feels pretty climactic. Apparently they designed this fight around using your TV speakers to track where the hind is, but since the stinger always has these little square things that track targets, I always just use that. The hind D is gone. There's no way that a normal man could have survived. Hey cool, the elevator's working. Otacon only just realizes something is wrong when Snake gets in, though.
What?
First of all, Otacon's stealth prototypes in his lab were missing.
Hey, this isn't first grade math class.
And secondly, when Snake enters the elevator, the weight limit warning goes off. It's an ambush with stealthy guards. Snake makes it to a snowfield out in the open where he gets shot by Sniper Wolf. I love how bad this cutscene plays out. He stands in the open, gets shot, then instead of going behind cover, he just crouches down in the open field where he literally just got shot and makes a codec call. It's the second fight with Sniper Wolf. I'm not into sniping, but she is standing in the open, so it's nothing a Nikita missile can't breeze through. After taking several missiles to the chest, she's struggling to breathe, but otherwise seems to be fine. Foxhound uniforms must be made of adamantium or something. She has her sad death cutscene, explaining her reverence for Big Boss, her desire to snipe to not have to witness war up close, how she never kills others for sport, only professionally, and that she was waiting to fight an opponent who was strong enough to allow her to finally die in peace. Otacon shows up and gives her rifle before Snake then respectfully mercy kills her. He's also left wondering what any of them are fighting for, something that's going to continue to bother him throughout the game. Now it's time for the blast furnace. We're into the final stretch. Through the furnace and down the elevator, Snake is now in the refrigerated warehouse where he has to fight Vulcan Raven. It's a fight of running around, setting claymores, and shooting Nikita missiles to damage him while avoiding damage from the chain gun. Eventually, you beat him and progress to the hangar Metal Gear is being kept in. Oddly enough, there's not a lot of guards here. Once he makes it to the control room, he overhears a conversation between Liquid and Ocelot. Among other things, there's a dude named Grulikovich who's helping equip their rebellion, and Liquid doesn't want to nuke someplace in Russia because he needs to ensure that the nuke goes somewhere that the US can't hide it, instead choosing to nuke Lopnor, China to force the US into a bad position. They say they've already activated the codes to launch and that the president will pretty much have to give in to their demands. They also mention that the Foxdie virus has killed Decoy Octopus and Baker, and they want to get the Foxdie vaccine to help ensure this doesn't continue to be a problem, among other things. Otacon tells him that the trick to the disarm key is that it changes shape based on temperature, and they can only be used once each. Snake's gonna have to handle that. Alas, Ocelot shoots the card out of his hands, and he needs to backtrack back down to the drainage ditch at the bottom of the hangar to find it. Then back to the top to put in the room temperature version of the key, back to the refrigerated warehouse to freeze the key, then back to the top of the hangar to put in that version, then all the way back to the blast furnace to heat it up, and then back all the way through everything in between to return to the top of the hangar one last time to put in that key. Metal Gear should be defused now. Ah, crap. On top of that, Campbell just discovered that Master Miller has been dead this entire time. The man we were talking to was, in fact, Liquid Snake.
Liquid! Snake! Did you like my sunglasses?
Well, that escalated quickly. Liquid hams it up for a bit. Snake and himself are clones of Big Boss, created via Les Enfants Terribles. Liquid climbs into Rex, and now it's time for Snake to fight and destroy Rex. Alone. With rockets and stuff. Yeah, he's pretty cool. Partway through the fight, Gray Fox sacrifices himself to save Snake. He's unceremoniously trampled like a bug, but not before getting his chance to tell us that he always fought for what he believed in, and that people like himself and Snake, who live their lives for war, are not tools of the government or anybody else. After Rex is defeated, Liquid's still able to drag Snake to the top of it, and they have to fight all the way up there, where a fall would easily kill either of them. things have really gone south as the US government's about to nuke Shadow Moses off the face of the earth in order to erase this once and for all. The Secretary of Defense has taken over the operation and Campbell is out of power now. Campbell was able to explain why he's been lying to Snake this whole time, though. The Secretary of Defense had Merrill placed on the island in order to force him to cooperate, and he's totally prepared to kill everybody there. And whether Snake likes it or not, he's carrying Foxdie and he can't do anything about it. After the fist fight, Snake and Merrill, with some help from Otacon, commandeer a jeep and make a daring escape, but after a bit more shooting, they make it outside and then they crash. Even with that, Liquid barely survives, but he then drops dead from Foxdie. Campbell then gets back up with them and explains that the whole situation was entirely the Secretary of Defense going rogue. Nobody else seemed to know about the situation. To conclude, Campbell tells them about a nearby snowmobile and is able to set up for Otacon to escape too. Campbell's got a hard copy of Mei Ling's exercise data, and nobody can track Snake, so they should be able to live just fine. With Foxdie, Snake doesn't know how long it'll be before he dies. But him and Merrill choose to move on from this sort of thing and live out their days in peace rather than worry about fate and being bound by their genetics. We then get our credits.
Yes, sir. The entire unit was wiped out. Those two are still alive. The Vector? Yes, sir. Foxdie should become activated soon. Right on schedule. Yes, sir. I recovered all of Rex's dummy warhead data. No, sir. My cover is intact. Nobody knows who I really am. Yes, the DARPA chief knew my identity, but he's been disposed of. Yes, the inferior one was the winner after all. It takes a well-balanced individual such as yourself to rule the world. No, sir. No one knows that you were the third one, Solidus. Goodbye, Mr. President.
Okay, there's a lot to unpack here. Foxdie was never activated. Ocelot still has the test data, and he's working with a man who is apparently the third clone of Big Boss, called Solidus. And that man also happens to be the President of the United States. My God, where is this going? Stay tuned. The gameplay is like this. Guards have a cone of vision, as do security cameras. Snake's goal, since this is a sneaking game, is to sneak past these things. Guards can be knocked out or killed by a variety of things, whether they're guns, grenades, or other means. They often drop items when they're killed, while cameras can be evaded either by using chaff grenades to blind them or by sneaking right underneath them by crawling along walls. Snake can crawl or press against walls to stay hidden and can knock on walls to create noise in order to lure guards towards him. The game is played with an overhead camera angle that often obscures your vision past a certain part of the room. Because of this, the Soliton radar is vital, but if you get caught, the radar won't work until the alert goes away. Snake can also look around with his binoculars or in first person, but he can't move while he does this. In addition, there are several items he can use. Mostly, you have to worry about your rations, which are healing items. Equipping a ration means you'll automatically heal when your health reaches 0, so it's almost never worth not having them equipped, unless you're using some other item like the gas mask or the keycards. The keycards are kind of a pain. The keycard you currently have can unlock any door of that level or lower, so you don't have to swap through 500 keys. But you do have to have the keycard equipped to actually open a door with it. This causes unnecessary inventory management, in my opinion. Many of the items you get are really specific in their use. They're almost like Resident Evil puzzle items in that regard. For example, the diazepam steadies your aim with a sniper, which you're only going to need at most a couple of times. There's only maybe one place in the whole game where you ever really need the night vision goggles. The mine detector and the thermal goggles are kind of redundant because there's not much of a reason to use the mine detector, in my opinion, because the mine detector shows mines on your radar screen, but if the radar gets jammed it won't work. But if you use thermal goggles, the claymores are visible on your screen with a red glow, allowing you to easily navigate around them. Other items like the rope are literally used once. It seems odd to me, but I guess at least it means that most of the items you have are only going to come up the one time, so you don't have to worry about it. Still, the item management does bog down a bit. Unequipping your weapon and re-equipping it quickly will reload it, which helps because there's not a dedicated button to do so. One thing that stands out to me is that the SOCOM pistol gets a suppressor. It's nice, but it's a little too good, and it makes the stealth cheesy, and you get it super early on. Once you have it, as long as you know where your enemy is and you judge the range correctly, you can kill every enemy guard you encounter without actually having to stealth that much. Outside of the warhead storage area where you're literally unable to fire your gun, this makes a lot of the stealth really cheesy. The second Sniper Wolf fight is cheesy because you can just hide in the corner where she can't see or hit you, and then you just get free cheap shots with the Nikita, no effort required. Then again, since the sniper is so annoying, I've never beaten this fight using the sniper rifle, even though I've played this game literally several times. Raven's fight in the warehouse is just a game of trapping him with mines. The Rex fight was really good at making me nervous, though. I had to spam stun grenades in the second part of the fight to finish it, so it can cut both ways at times, but it's weird how cheesy and silly some of this stuff is in terms of actual difficulty. Now, I could sit here and spend more time talking about the story, but to be honest, I feel like that's the sort of thing where I would want to make a whole nother video to talk about it, and honestly, we're going to have a whole lot of stuff to talk about if we continue on in Metal Gear Solid as it is without me bogging down on these sorts of details. And I don't really think there's a whole lot more for me to say about the gameplay. When something works, it just works. For now, I'll just say Metal Gear Solid is one of my favorite games of all time, and I think it's a classic example of how mature and intelligent video games really are. The fact that video games are a work of art in the same way that cinema would be, or music would be, or a painting would be. And I think Metal Gear Solid is one of those things that anybody who takes themselves seriously as a gamer, they need to play it at least once. And I think that's a good note to leave it on. So I'll see you in the next one.